Radical acceptance. It's a huge tool in my practice, and it's a great tool for just about anybody, honestly. And that is what we're going to talk about today, how to switch that why me, that victim mentality, into acceptance. And that's what it is, radical acceptance. Welcome to episode 87 of the Positivity Experience, Radical Acceptance. Check it out. Hey everybody, and welcome back to episode 87 of the Positivity Experience. It's your girl, Lori. I am plugging away with my goals. I know you guys heard me say I wanted to be 4 podcasts ahead, right? So I'm really doing it. So I'm working on it. So if you don't hear your name in the Patreon, I promise I haven't forgotten you. I just literally have not seen it yet. Like quite literally, you haven't even done it yet. So just letting you know, it will be addressed. And if you wonder what Patreon is, it is the toolbox version to this podcast. It really helps offset any expenses to keep sponsors off, to keep this very independent, since I do the production, the mixing, the mastering, and all that stuff. So, but it gives you a little something, as well as once a month, I'm going to try to do little giveaways or little touch-ins and, check-ins kind of thing. If that's your jam, in the show notes here, you'll be able to see it, and you can click on it, and there's a couple different tiers that you can choose from. So I cannot wait to talk to you about this topic. This is a huge part of my practice. Before DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, that's essentially what this tool is that I'm giving you. It's a part of DBT. But before it was classified as DBT, this is what was used on me, right? So 20 years ago, maybe a little bit less, a little bit more, somewhere around there. And it is this exact thing. It wasn't given a name of radical acceptance, or, it kind of was given radical acceptance, but it wasn't really known as a DBT thing because it really wasn't a thing at that time. So this was a huge, huge part of my personal growth long before this became a profession, or before it even became a thought of a profession. So I'm so excited to kind of share this with you. And over on Patreon, I'm going to give you a really good exercise that I've done and like kind of keep in my arsenal. I don't necessarily need it as much anymore, but it's always good to have, right? You always want to kind of keep your notes and your tools so you have it. So let's talk a little bit about radical acceptance, right? So there's a thing called distress tolerance, right? So it's almost like emotional regulation in a way, but it's like how you tolerate distress, because the reality is, unfortunately, those things are going to happen. And this is essentially, if I was to give you one sentence of what radical acceptance is to acknowledge that, you know what, things are going to suck at times. Yep, it's going to suck. You're going to feel bad. Things are not going to be great. These things are going to happen. And that's accepting them for them being what they are without attaching emotion to it, but still processing your emotion. So accepting it, right? Because you hear me talk about this, and I know I'm going to talk about this 150 million more times probably, because your resistance to your change of growth is, and like wanting it and being like, why me, and victim mentality, and why this happened to me, and why couldn't I have a different family, and why doesn't my family, why can't I have a, normal life, whatever normal is. Like looking at that and living there is ego too. Okay, so your ego, we know, right? In life, you have various parts of your ego. There's the id, the super ego, and, the ego, right? So we know that everything that you do in life is within a certain part of your ego. But if you live in the middle state, you can accept things that are not in your control. You not accepting them is not, you're not a martyr here. You don't get a gold medal because you're refusing to let something go. You don't. The person that you are refusing to let go, or the situation that you're refusing to accept, no one else is affected by this but you. And while that may bother you, and if that bothers you, that's how you know the ego comes into play. Because if you're like, well, I don't understand, they treated me horribly and they're off living their best life. Okay, accept it for what it is. So it is a skill, right? And what it does is, pain is inevitable. You will feel pain, but it doesn't have to be suffering. So with radical acceptance, what it does is it gives you the acknowledgement of the pain. That's why, going back, if you, now we're weeks out probably. So if you go back to my YouTube, there's 5 episodes, right? You can watch them back to back, that talks to you talks you through each journal of the 5 journals, but the negative journal will be a great place for this radical acceptance. So you want to grab your negative journal for this, which is really just your like processing journal, and it's going to really help you understand it. And again, the dialectical behavioral piece of this is huge for people with borderline personality, depression, various things. But again, before this was given a title of DBT, radical acceptance has been around forever, right? Like it's just about staying present and accepting the fact that time only exists now and what is. And I know people are like, oh my God, that seems so blasé to say it is what it is. When I tell you that is my tagline of my entire brand, it is what it is. Yes, the things that you experience are real and they are painful and they are joyful and they are various things. They are awesome. They are experiences. But at the end of the day, those experiences are not good nor bad. They just are. And this is wrapping your head around that. So it is a distress tolerance skill, but it's going to be one that's going to be beneficial for you, and it's not going to be overnight. So I know a lot of you want instant gratification and instant results. Not going to happen. And it isn't going to happen just because you wish it, right? This is the practice. This is the 5 journals. This is the staying present. This is the meditation. This is creating the routine. This is where it's going to be beneficial for you. Consistency is going to be your best friend or your worst enemy if you're not doing it. And I think the big thing too is when you deny that something has happened, right? And I don't mean deny it where you're like, it never happened, but where you're like, oh my God, like it just happened and I don't understand. And you keep trying to understand the why and all this stuff, right? What that has done is it has taken the initial feeling or the initial shock or the initial situation, and now you're breathing more life into it. Now you become a victim to that. You become a victim and you become like a prisoner to it. You feel like you're helpless and that, oh my God, you can't see your way out of it because you're denying what the reality is, right? Like the reality is, let's say it's something that has just happened or has already happened. I don't care how much you try to say you wish it would have been different and it's not going to be. The acceptance of that is, like it or not, dwell on it or not, it's not changing. And by not accepting it, it keeps you stuck in the victim mentality. This is unfair. Oh my God, why is this happening to me? Why can't I be like everybody else? What is wrong with me? Well, that is the victim mentality, and the victim mentality does not benefit you, right? To feel it and to process it is real, and that's healthy, because I have felt pain on high levels of that. And I told you, I was that person, and I promise I have a whole chapter in the book talking about my experience with this radical acceptance and why it has been literally life-changing. That's why for some people, it may be like, oh my God, she can be cold and callous. No, I just accept things for what it is, right? And don't misconstrue accepting something for approval, okay? Just because you accept something happens doesn't mean that you approve it and validate it. It's actually when you accept it, of it being what it is, you can look at it without the emotional reaction. So instead of reacting, I want you to get into this space of response. But you can't do that when you're working out of emotion, which can sometimes trigger into ego, which now you're saying, if I accept this or forgive this or whatever adjective that you want to throw on here, that it is saying that it's okay for someone to treat me or someone to do these things. Okay, so go ahead and stay there and let me know how well that's working for you. Is it protecting you? The same walls that protect are the same walls that imprison you. It's not going to serve you, because then you're just holding grudges and you're carrying that trauma and issues into future relationships and friendships. Because, a friendship is a relationship. Doesn't always have to be a sexual or a love relationship. So when you're carrying that into your life, okay, when you're carrying that into your life, you think that you've protected yourself. You have not. You've allowed that person to live rent-free in your head, and you have refused to accept it. But accepting it, here's the piece of that is what you're fighting too, is you may want that person, or maybe it was so bad you don't want that person, but you want the explanation or the justice. You're going to have to stop holding out for justice. I mean, as sucky as that sounds, it literally is what it is. I didn't say don't try to get justice, especially if it's like within the legal system. But if it's, oh, this person hurt me, I need to go seek revenge and become the karma police, that's not accepting. And now it's not going to give you the outcome. And even if you hurt somebody, it doesn't heal you. By dimming somebody else's candle doesn't make yours brighter. Okay, so you have to understand that. It's not going to change the present. You cannot even like what you're seeing, what you're experiencing right now, today. You can be like, oh my God, this sucks so bad. Okay, well, accept it for what it is. I don't like it. Okay. So is there something you can do about it? Okay, great. If it's not, you got to accept that it is out of your control and to resist that and to refuse that and stop saying you don't know how. I've given you tools. And if you're not using them, then you got to check yourself. Okay. And what I mean by that is stop saying you don't have time. Stop saying you don't feel like doing it. Stop saying you want it to be fast. Stop saying you want other people to make you feel better. Stop doing those things and then go, well, I mean, I did it for a few times, but no. Whether you like it or not, you must radically accept that things are what they are. Good, bad, indifferent, does not matter. Activities, words, actions carry zero emotion. They are what they are. We attach those things. The things that work for us, let's say in different countries, people do different things. We might look at something, I'm in the US. And by the way, I love you guys overseas so much. I see that there's so many listeners in Australia. I want one of you guys to fly me there. I really want to come visit. But I love all of you. And, you know, in different countries, people do things differently. So they may look at what we do with certain things and think, oh my God, that's like wrong. And we might look at certain things they do and say, oh my God, that's like wrong. I don't look at it that way, but some people do. Why can't you just accept it for what it is? Like literally, why can't you just accept it? When you start judging and you start saying this is wrong, this is right, ooh, that's not accepting. You don't have to like it and you don't have to rock with it. But this is the piece that when you radically accept, that means you must radically accept maybe you and your sister don't need to talk ever again. Maybe you and your family need to just disconnect. Maybe your marriage isn't all that great and you know it's not great, but you refuse to accept it because you have 3 kids and oh my God, what are you going to do? And how are you going to get the money? And okay, I hear you. But instead of saying, I don't want to accept it and I'm just going to ride out the wave, your life isn't meant to be miserable unless you allow it. And I say that to you because you have to realize, yeah, those changes aren't going to happen overnight. You're right. But if you're not looking for it and you're not accepting the things that are out of your control, you're not going to go anywhere. You're just going to stay stuck, you know, and, you know, this is, it's going to be challenging. But if you focus on what you can control, okay, this is that big swing. What can you control? Right? So what you can control if you do the journals, you can control if you get up and drink your water, you can control if you're capable, if you're physically capable of going for a walk, you can control your thoughts as long as, not when I say control your thoughts, not on that level like you're thinking. When I say control your thoughts is you can control your thoughts of acceptance. You really can. And think about how much energy that frees up. You're fighting reality. That's legitimately what you're doing. When you're resisting or when you're refusing to accept it, it's reality. It has happened. It's not like it's not a fact. It's a fact. Like it's literally a fact. It has happened. It is not changing. You can spin it and say you wish it was. It's not changing. And, you know, when you do those things like, oh, I don't understand how I ended up here. This shouldn't be this bad. Why is this happening to me? Okay. But it is. You're here now. You will never find a solution to the problem or to the issues that you're facing while sticking in the victim mentality and lack of acceptability. I will say this 100 million times. Your trauma and the experiences in which you have experienced are not your fault. Not at all. But you're here now and it is what it is. Period. You can spin it. You can say, oh my God, that's cold. That's cold. It is what it is. It's nothing else, but it is what it is. That has happened. Like it or not like it. If there's lessons to be learned, take it with you, but don't take the pain and the trauma with you. Okay. And that's it. I mean, you know, if it's happened, it's happened. That's observing it, right? Observe yourself. Observe it and say, look, am I fighting reality? Am I getting really victim-y here and thinking that other people should make me feel better or my feelings are super hurt because of this, that, and the third? Observe that. What's in your control? Well, if somebody doesn't rock with you or if something doesn't align with you, stop aligning with it And I understand that may not be an overnight thing. You can't just like walk out of the family today, but there's a plan that you can put into place and a strategy. And when you accept something, that is with your mind, body, and spirit. You do your breathing, you do your meditation. Visualization and imagery is your best friend if you do it in the way that I'm going to tell you. And it is going to be something we do over in Patreon too, right? You have to understand that as unpleasant as something is, it just is. It cannot be changed. Now, if it can be changed, you change it. But if it cannot, you must accept it, like it or not. Okay. There are all of the things to look and say, well, how did something happen? Is there something that I could have done different? Is that a tool that I can take with me? Yes. And then you set it, forget it, and release it. You don't sit there and relive it for 15 years. Okay. So think about this too. Think about the joy of acceptance. Think about the freedom that this gives. See, another thing, you hold on to things and you hold on to those things because you think it gives you some level of purpose or identity, right? But you're not that identity. Your past isn't your identity. Your job isn't your identity. Your family's not your identity. So you have to be able to sit there and list down the things that you could do and would do and will do when you do accept it. Look at the journey of that. Okay. And there's some practices that you can do that when you like write it out, right? That's why this whole pen to pad type thing, I pause there because I usually say pad to pen, like it's weird, or pad to paper or something like that. But it's something for you to understand that if something seems unacceptable to you, it's going to remain there and it's going to prison you. So if you're like, well, their behavior is unacceptable. Okay. Now, of course, I'm not talking about teenagers because that's going to happen, right? That's just welcome to the world of being a parent. But I'm saying if you're like, well, this person's behavior is unacceptable. Okay. Well, you have two choices. Sit there, dwell on it and go, why is Becky in finance annoying me? And sit there and obsess on it. Or you accept it for what it is. Becky is who she is and she's going to do what she does. If it doesn't serve you, stop rocking with it. And before you, like I said last week, or a couple weeks ago, if you in fact go, well, why do I have to be the one to leave? Well, you're the one that's miserable. Stop making it seem like everybody wins and you're proving some kind of point. See, that's the whole concept of this block thing. I block like a profession. If somebody comes at you sideways and it's not like, productive or constructive in any way, shape, or form, don't breathe life into it. Let them think that you're just like a coward let them think whatever they want. Nah, I'm good. Accept the unacceptable. You don't have to rock with it, but it is what it is. Okay. And this is why you have to allow yourself that your sadness, your anger, right? Anger is fear, frustration, and hurt. Grief, all of these things, they're allowed to come up. This isn't to say that you're not going to have feelings. This isn't to say that. Okay? Life is life. And part of life is good, bad, indifferent, or whatever you want to say. I don't even like to label it that way. Is let's say painful or joyful or anything like that. And I think that is something that's so important for you. See, you have to understand that when people say, okay, I just don't know how to release it. Okay. Well, you're not doing the work here. Okay. So if you're not accepting something, you're like, well, I refuse to accept this. Let me give it to you like this. Okay. Let's say like the pandemic, right? There are a lot of people who are like, it's not real. It's real. It's not real. Whatever your view on it, I don't really care. Like I do me and it is what it is. Like, it's just me. I'm a vaccinated person. It works for me. If it doesn't for you, I don't care. I don't care. Like go do you. That doesn't mean, like I said, that I'm going to have you inside my house if you're not vaccinated, not without a mask. And if at all with a mask. And if you're like, well, I don't like that. Well, then don't accept it. I'm not asking you to get vaccinated and I'm not going to come to your house. Don't get your feelings hurt if I'm not like, okay, are we going to sit outside? Cool, let's sit outside. I don't care if you're vaccinated. Let's sit out around the fire. But see, you have to understand, I don't care because I know what I'm doing for me. If I sat here and worried about why, well, I think people should do this and I think people should do that. And why aren't people doing this? And why aren't people saying, and I don't care. That's too much energy that I just don't have. I accept that people are who they are and it works for them. I accept that there are things that are out of my control. You know, you can look whatever country that you're in, whatever state, country, town, whatever in, I'm sure there's something politically in that area that you're not a fan of, right? Okay. What are you going to do about it? Is there something you can do about it? Yeah. Okay. You could vote. Okay. And then what? Is there a bill you could do? Okay. If there is, great. If there isn't, what is complaining doing about it? What is going, oh my God, I'm miserable. Stop. Turn off the news. Know enough that you need to know. Release that. Okay. If you're looking at your past life, like, you know, past life meaning not like dead life, but like if you're looking at your past childhood or you're looking at somebody who cheated on you and you're like, I don't understand why this happened. Okay. It did happen. Point blank. It did happen. Ultimately, it doesn't even really matter the why, because the why will never be good enough for you. So if your partner says to you, hey, yeah, I stepped out just because I felt like it. Like it had nothing to do with you. It was just me. I just wanted to do it. Is that going to be enough for you? Of course it's not. You're going to be like, well, but am I not enough? Well, why are we making this about you? You're not the one that stepped out. And if you did, you might have had your own reasons for it. See, whether you like it or not, it's happened. So you can say, I can't believe that this happened. It did happen. It absolutely happened. Yeah, my feelings are hurt. Great. Let's process them. Feel the feelings, but you take accountability for those feelings, because the action of that person stepping out of you is not good. It is not bad. It just is. Your feelings are hurt. This is how you feel. You process your feelings. Oh, well, I don't understand why these people don't, like my friends don't include me. Like, why do I not, like I have a little bit of FOMO here. Okay, your stuff to process. Okay, you didn't go to Vegas with them. Whether you think about that 6 months down the road or 5 years down the road, you still didn't go to Vegas with them. Yeah, I don't understand why. They don't have to give that to you. This is the radical acceptance piece. This is the radical acceptance. People don't have to explain their why to you. Accepting it for being what it is, and now look at it and say, can I change it? No. In the future, maybe you don't wait for the invite. What is wrong with saying, hey, you guys are going to Vegas? Hey, I want to go. Why are you always waiting for people to ask you to do things? Just say, hey, do you mind if I come? And if they go, yeah, no, not really. I mean, I don't really want you to come. This is just something I'm doing with me and my whomever. Then you have to accept that. If your feelings get hurt, you want to process it out. They don't have to explain to you their why. So with radical acceptance, you have to understand that you have to talk positive and supportive to self in self-love. This helps you with your stressful situations, right? You need a mental break from social media. You know how I feel about that. Even though I use social media for just about everything, a huge part of my platform is social media. I am very intentional in that. It is very limited. I am not going to sit there and waste an enormous amount of time scrolling and just running away from my life. I'm not doing it. I don't care. I need to know what's going on in the world, not just in the country, in the world, because I have various clients in different parts of the world. So I need to know things are going on in other people's countries too, but I don't need to obsess on it. I don't need to be like, well, I don't understand how that's happening. I don't care. I just need to know what it is. Right? And so you have to understand that when you are sitting in a neutral space, so this is the art of unattachment. This is why this came right after the unattachment, because last week we talked about unattachment, 2 weeks ago we talked about unattachment. So this is the important factor. When you live neutral doesn't mean that you're numb. This doesn't mean that you're numb. This just means that you accept things of not being good nor bad, not positive nor negative, just neutral. Now, it's a huge monk skill. This is when you see people go to the ashrams and they go away and they do the chanting. This is a huge part of like Buddhist culture. And we all know that I do have a heavy lean in my Buddhist practice. Okay, so when you accept this, and when I tell you this was one of the biggest, radical acceptance has been one of the biggest improvements in an area that I could really build on since I was in my 20s. Okay, so whether you like it or not is irrelevant. You process it and you release it. And there's always something good in every situation, good, bad, or indifferent. And let me give you an example of that. So I don't know if you guys know, I think most of you do know that I work sometimes with people who have had like their family annihilated or murdered, or well, that is annihilated. And like their family their whole ass family. Okay. And sat and we've talked and we've worked through things and they've processed things. Do you know that they are at that space now where they can say this, it is what it is? Not because they feel like I don't need it or, oh my God, they know that holding on to grief doesn't serve their purpose in the long run. They've processed their grief, I should say, but they're not holding on to it. They're not holding on to the anger. They've actually forgiven. I've had a couple people where they've actually forgiven the people because they know holding on to it doesn't benefit them. And they have to accept it. It sucks. Absolutely sucks. Yep. But they know that if they stay in the suck, now what have they done? Here's something that you can do. Let's say it's something that you are just like, oh my God, I'm having such a hard time accepting this. They've since done they've done charity walks. They've done different charitable things. They speak out on like certain things and the situations that have happened to help people, to give them other resources. So much like me going into this as a profession, all of the coaching and everything, they have also done the same thing. See, when you pull the power from what you're refusing to accept, you now take that pain and you transmutate that into power. So what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do? Well, the more that person would have focused, and in the beginning did, but believe it or not as long as you would think, but focused on I can't believe this. I'm so angry. Why? Oh my God, my life sucks. It's never going to be the same, And it isn't going to be the same. They accepted that. But since then, they've now moved forward. It's been several years. And, they've moved forward. They have another family. It doesn't mean that they forgot their other family, because they still do a lot of charitable work and different things like that to still, keep that family around. They've done the planting of trees, like I always recommend, and various things. So you have to understand that it doesn't matter, honestly, how strong something is that you're having a hard time resisting and releasing. It is only holding you back. And you get no special bells and whistles and no medal for holding on to this. So you have to accept that radically. You have to accept it. You have to know that this is what's happening. And, you can distract yourself. One of the biggest things with distress tolerance. So let's talk a little bit about like distress tolerance, because that's a huge DBT skill. But again, prior to DBT, it was a skill that most people, therapists and stuff would use anyway, is distracting yourself, not avoiding. I didn't say avoiding. I said distracting yourself. Doing your hobby. I do my crochet just as a distraction sometimes, not to run away from anything. Just, okay, let me give myself something positive. Distract that negative thought, distract that obsessive thought with something that you enjoy. A hobby, going for a walk, doing a little exercise. It kind of goes into like your self-soothing too, right? And like, you can think of self-soothing as like, I love to do visualization and imagery. So I have what I call your anchor place. And I did on YouTube, how to find your anchor place. So it's just this visualization place that you go and it has everything that you need. It's all visual. All right. And like I said, you have to pull what that power is. Whatever your spirituality is, if you believe in God, if you believe in Buddha, Buddha's not a religion, but if you believe in Allah, I don't care what you believe in. If you pull that power and go and sit in your spirituality, I like to go sit by trees. I like to go lean up against things. I like to put my feet in the ground. That's super helpful. Okay. Deep breathing, always going to be your best friend. Always going to be your best friend. Understanding that time only exists right now. So if this moment sucks, doesn't mean the next moment will. And if it does, that one isn't going to stay forever. Maya Angelou once said, every storm runs out of rain. And that's a true fact, right? Take a mental break. If something is stressing you, disconnect from it. Don't social media. I'm always going to drill that in your head. And it's your positive self-reinforcement. Stop with the whole, what's wrong with me? And why wasn't I enough? Stop it. So that's sort of the wrap here on radical acceptance is, again, and I know, and I said it is what it is a million times because that is why this became my motto a million years ago. Because when you accept that things are not good nor bad, it is not personal. You are both amazing and spectacular and irrelevant, right? So let me repeat that. You, me, all of us. We are both amazing, dynamic, kings, queens, non-binaries. We are amazing. In the same breath, we are also irrelevant. When you do that and you understand the yin to the yang in that, now you're living out of your ego. The world does not revolve around you, but your world should revolve around you. And if people have a problem with that, that's for them to process. And when I say revolve around you, I don't mean it's all about you. I'm saying for you, you must always carve out time for yourself. You must do the release process. You must do all of these things. Your world should revolve around your healing, because it's going to be a lifelong thing. It's not overnight, and nor does it ever get completed. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes patience, and it takes consistency. And when you accept that piece of it, then and only then are you in that space where you can sit there and radically accept it. But like it or not, it is what it is. So you have two choices. Accept it, do the distractions, work on things, release what no longer serves you, or hold on to it. But at the end of the day, the only person who's going to either flourish or suffer without that radical acceptance is you.
Check it out.